I have to apologize because I wanted at the beginning to present another paper. I wanted to present something else, a sort of story concerning ICT performance based on several papers from me and from others. And Philippe told me, no, you have to present something based on one paper. So I've chosen this paper, and I hope you will find interesting this paper. So this paper is a joint one with Antonin here present and Rémi Leca from the Banque de France. And I will first introduce the topic and to present after what do we do. I will present the model, the data, which is the most original part of the story, the estimates, and how they allow us to answer to the question raised by the paper, and some takeaways. So, first, as everybody knows here, 20th century was a period of very, very high growth in average compared to previous centuries. And through an accounting approach, I will just decompose growth on several factors of growth. First, labor productivity growth, decomposed in TFP growth and capital deepening effect, plus numbers of worked hour growth, decompose itself on employment growth and hours per worker growth. So this representation is based on the work that we have done with Antonin and Rémi for already 2 years, 3 years perhaps even, 3 years. And we have built a very long database on productivity over 17 countries. Very long, I mean more than 1 century, a century and 30 years, and for investment even longer. And from this, you know, we can study productivity growth here and growth on several countries. So here, what I present is a decomposition of the average growth on several sub-periods here for several countries, US, Euro area, UK, and Japan. And growth in average corresponds to this losange in black, the average growth. And it's decomposed in different factors. It's at the country level. It's decomposed in different factors. In green, you have the labor productivity. Light green, it's capital deepening channel. And dark green, it corresponds to TFP. And in orange, the population evolution. In blue, the employment rate. And light blue, the hours worked. I'm not going to comment all details of this graph. I would like to raise only some points. First one is that you see that over this very long period from 1890, the average growth on different sub-periods changed a lot. Yeah.
How did you split the time into buckets?
How do you? You know, from the beginning to the year before the First World War, from the year before the First World War to just after the reconstruction period after the Second World War, from this to the first oil shock, from this to the ICT 1995, the ICT productivity acceleration in the US, observed in the US, you know, from 1995 to 2005, and 2005 corresponds to a last sub-period of low productivity gains in all developed countries. So what you see is that productivity growth changed a lot, and the main driver of this change is productivity growth, labor productivity growth in green, and within productivity growth, the main explanation of this high volatility of growth comes from TFP, so in dark green. And that's the first element I want to raise. And the second one is, of course, this decline of productivity growth from the first oil shock and even before in the US, but this decline, with in the US and in the UK specifically a revival, an increase of productivity growth during only one decade, corresponding to the third industrial revolution. I will come back to this after. So here, during this only one decade. But after, back to low productivity and low growth from low productivity growth from 2005 to the current period. And you observe this in all countries. In the UK, quite similar evolution. In others, even without this productivity acceleration during this decade, 1995 to 2005. But everywhere, high volatility, ITFP growth volatility first, and secondly, I will come back to this also, and secondly, this very impressive decline of productivity and of growth during the last decade. So you observe this everywhere. And even if you look at the biggest countries in the euro area, you observe the same, so same euro area, the same data as in previous graph, but the four main countries, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, you observe exactly the same facts, the same elements, but in Spain, in the last period, a very specific productivity acceleration, which has specific causes. I'm not going to describe this more. We have done a paper, just a paper with John Fernald and Benoît Maujon on this specificity of Spain over the last two decades, and also some specificities in Italy. So, but what you observe, the two same facts, high TFP growth volatility, which explains the volatility of growth, which is the main factor of growth volatility first, and secondly, but for Spain, a decline of TFP growth in the last sub-period compared to the other one. And this decline is impressive. And you can see that productivity growth is lower to a point never known before for during 1 century and 30 years. So from this, you know, this paper want to raise, try to raise two questions. First one is it possible to go further and to characterize empirically what is behind this TFP growth volatility? What are the drivers of this TFP growth volatility? And the second question, of course, from the answer to the first question, is it possible to get an answer, to get an explanation of the productivity slowdown during the last years, during the last period, you know, which is, of course, a big debate in the current literature. And in fact, we work on this. To work on this was a suggestion from Dale Jorgensen, because when we sent him previous papers with Antonin and Rémi, looking at productivity growth over a very long period, Jorgensen told us you have to go further now. You explain nothing, in fact. You explain the volatility of growth by the volatility of TFP, but as you don't explain the volatility of TFP, this volatility comes from the sky, and you have to try to explain it. So it was to to answer to this suggestion from Jorgensen that we have done this paper. So now I'm going to show you some elements concerning, not productivity growth over different sub-period, but a continuous curve concerning productivity growth. It's only smoothed by Aldrich Prescott filter to lose some yearly volatility and to keep only the cycle. So what is represented here is the TFP growth evaluated by us. TFP growth smoothed with a HP filter. And it's from 1890 to the current period. What you see is really impressive. First, you see the end of the impact of the first industrial revolution. First industrial revolution, it is corresponds to the use of the steam engine, corresponds to a large use of railways with railways industry steam engine. So we get here the end of this period. In fact, we will go further in the 19th century in next papers, and the first industrial revolution was a double deep one, but I'm not going to give more detail, or perhaps during the discussion. So after you see this big productivity growth wave, which was what Gordon called the big wave, which with a little step during the Great Depression here, from the end of the 20s until the Second World War, with an impressive TFP acceleration after and during the Second World War, and after with a slowdown, a quite continuous slowdown of productivity of TFP growth until the end of the 80s, and so this corresponds to the impact of the second industrial revolution. So second industrial revolution corresponds to the diffusion of electricity, to the internal combustion engine, development of transports, development of chemistry industry, so a lot of innovations of this type. And after, you see the impact of the third industrial revolution corresponding to the ICT 1. And what is impressive is that the ICT industrial revolution, first, is very short in time compared to the previous one. And secondly, is not so big if you compare the TFP gains to the ones of the second industrial revolution, and in some few times to the one of the first industrial revolution. And you observe at the end of the period this very impressive slowdown, which means, of course, low productivity gains in the US, which is still the case. And you know that productivity gains are at the country level lower than 1% in the US. Yeah?
So especially for this last part,
here?
of course, yeah, there has been a huge change in terms of the use of capital now. So intangible capital is the dominant factor. Are you taking that into account?
No, Microphone, it's for you, huh? Microphone.
I was asking for this ICT period. Of course, there's always a big puzzle that ICT has penetrated big time into our life, but the productivity numbers doesn't show it, etc. So I was wondering if the capital numbers here take into account the intangible capital as opposed to tangible capital, because during that last period, of course, the production switched more towards intangible capital than tangible capital.
Here we use rules of national accounting. So it means that intangible capital is partly included in capital. For example, software are in capital. But a lot of elements of intangible capital are not in capital because they are not considered as investment by national accounting. So but, for this reason. But in any case, we would get the same curve with labor productivity. It's exactly the same, exactly the same. So what you say would change the border between capital deepening component and TFP component. We'll change a little this border, but we observe exactly the same evolutions for labor productivity. So it means that it will not change anything to this country level analysis. So when you look now at what happened in the euro area, and what I call here is the euro area is a merge of 8 countries of the current euro area, 8 countries that we have in our data set, but it's 8 countries represent 93% of the GDP of the whole euro area. So we think that it's really representative. So you can see that you see the same at the beginning. After, you see a little catch-up during the US Great Depression. After, you see the shock of the Second World War in Europe. And what is really surprising is that we have discussed this in a previous paper, is that the Second World War is a catastrophe for productivity gains in countries which experiment, if I can say the word, on their own soil, and it's a source of productivity gains in other countries, as, for example, US and Canada. So it's a catastrophe for the productivity gains, and after you have this big productivity wave, which corresponds to the catch-up process in Europe of the technology diffusion already existing in the US, and this long productivity decline from the beginning of the 60s. And you don't observe a lot, the impact here of the third industrial revolution. Don't observe it a lot, obviously, in the euro area. In the UK, quite the same evolutions. Difference that UK started the period with a high advantage in terms of productivity level, but this advantage compared to the US was lost between the two world wars. And the UK is a country which, as the US, benefits the most of the third industrial revolution impact on productivity. And at the end, you observe this even more impressive productivity slowdown in the UK, which is well documented in the literature, actually. And if you look at Japan, in green, you observe also the same evolution with a more impressive catch-up process, because the productivity level in Japan was by a lot very low at the beginning of the period, and Japan is still now with a low productivity level compared to the US and to the European countries, something as 75%, 70 to 75% of the US level only. So you see here, I'm not going to present the graph for the 17 countries. Of course, I present this only for the main areas. What you observe is this really impressive TFP growth volatility first, with different types of waves for productivity growth, and of course the impact of the shocks of the world wars, and at the end, everywhere, this productivity slowdown at the end of the period. It would be the same if I was showing, what happened within the euro area for the 4 main countries, with an atypical behavior of Spain earlier in a decline of productivity in the 20th century from the Civil War, which happened before the Second World War, and a productivity revival at the end of the period for a really specific reason. So on these aspects, on the causes of productivity growth and the drivers of productivity growth, of course, there is an abundant literature. Here I give only very few elements of this literature. Everybody here, I think, knows this by a lot, and in the paper we give a lot more references. And what we do, we are going to work on this topic, on this. We are going to try to explain this productivity volatility, TFP volatility over the period 1890 to 2013 in 17 advanced economies, which are presented here with a reconstituted euro area. And of course, I will focus in the presentation, but we give more details in the paper. I will focus on the 4 main areas, and even at the end only on the US, because otherwise it would take the whole afternoon to present all country specificities. So 3 steps in the analysis. First step, I've already presented the results of this. Usual measurement of TFP with only capital and labor as inputs. Second step, we are going to characterize 2 elements, 2 drivers, the role of 2 drivers of TFP growth. First one is human capital, and the second one is the age, the change in the age of capital stock. And the third step will be to try to take into account significant, element, component of the second industrial revolution, and will take into account electricity as the one good representative of this second industrial revolution, and we'll try also to take into account the impact of the third industrial revolution to decompose the movement of the change volatility in TFP at the end of the period in what is due to ICTs and what is not due to ICTs. So that's the 3 steps of the analysis. So the first one is very classical, I would say. We start with a very simple, it's a shame to be so simple, a very simple Cobb-Douglas function with constant scale returns, with capital stock composed of two components, equipment and buildings, and with labor composed of number of employees and hours, average number of working hours per worker. We assume a value for the elasticity alpha, a value of 0.3 for all countries and all the period. In fact, we have tried with other value of alpha, and we get quite the same results. So our results are robust to this choice of the coefficient alpha. Excuse me, yeah?
There's a growing literature now showing that the capital and labor share has been changing in the data
of course.
Over that period.
Yeah.
So how would this affect the results? Normally, it's different than considering constant alpha with different values.
In the long, you're right and you're wrong. You're right on the fact that there is change, but this change are change around quite a constant value of this share of labor and capital in the value added in the GDP. It's quite a constant around 0.3 or 0.27, but with long movements. I agree with you. And these long movements, we are in a long-term process analysis, and for example, during the crisis, of course, in a country as France, where firms cannot fire people, there was an increase of the share of labor and a decrease of the share of capital in the value added. But we think that it's not the structural share. The observed one was not an equilibrium one. And what we try to capture here is the structural share of
no, the papers that factors. I was referring to, like Karabarbanis and Newman at the QJE recently, and Ayşegül Şahin, etc., they were showing monotonically the labor share was declining over time, over the 40-year period. It's not fluctuating across, around the That's what I was referring to. As a result, that would also affect the growth rate numbers if you don't take that into account.
But we have written on this with Philippe Askenazi to tell that it comes from a wrong accounting of the share of labor and capital, and it comes mainly because it's evaluated at the business level on firms, and from the fact that you have self-employed people with high difficulties on the self-employed people to split between the capital share and the wage share. From this, you get this, and from the fact, of course, that the part of the number of self-employed people decreased, but not in the same moment, not at the same time, not with the same steps in all countries, you can explain this decrease of the labor share from these difficulties. And in France, for France, because you have to get very detailed number, for France we have reproduced what is shown by everybody, the increase of the capital share. And we have shown that this increase of capital share was coming from a wrong evaluation of capital and wage share for self-employed people with a moving number of self-employed people, And that on non-financial firms, if you exclude self-employed people, we observe quite a stable labor and capital share in value added. So we assume this in this paper. So that's the first step. In the second step, we go a little further, and we try to characterize the role of the capital age here with an approach which gets its inspiration from the proposal from Solow to take into account the age of capital in a Cobb-Douglas function. And, of course, when the age of capital decline, you get a negative impact on output, everything else equal. It means a decline on TFP. And we take into account, as proposed by several authors, as Barrow, for example, we take into account the average number of schooling years here to try to capture the impact of human capital. So we take this into account as it's proposed here. And of course, when the number of schooling years increase, you get everything else equal, an increase of TFP and an increase of output. So it means that the TFP of the first step here is decomposed in the impact of the age of capital, in the impact of the average years of schooling, and the residual TFP. And the third step tries to take into account the impact of one of the main components of the second industrial revolution. It's the electricity production, and what is very good in electricity production is that the imports and exports of electricity are few compared to the production of electricity, and there is no storage of electricity. So from this, we get a more adapted indicator. So this with production of electricity per capita, and we try also to take into account the third industrial revolution through the share of ICT capital in capital equipment, in current prices, to avoid as much as possible the difficulties of the sharing process between price and volume in ICT investment. But in fact, we don't escape completely to this problem. So the previous, the TFP of the second step now is decomposed in the impact of an innovation representative of the second industrial revolution, the impact of the variable which seems to us representative of the third industrial revolution, and the residual now TFP, which could be free of, and the impact of the quality of factors, human capital and age of capital, and of the impact of these two innovations, electricity here and ICTs also. So, what are our data? I've already given some elements on this. We build ourselves the capital series. We distinguished equipment, non-ICT equipment, building component of capital, and ICT equipment. And in ICT, we distinguish between hardware, software, communication equipment. What is in what it's useful to do this, of course, it's because the depreciation rates differ for each of these different components of capital to the others. We use in this to build this database a lot of information from historians, economists, of course, national accounts for the most recent period, and a lot of works from historians. It was a long process to build this database, 2 years, over 2-3 years. From our capital evaluation, we have also an evaluation of the age of equipment. We use from others data on education, and also from others data from electricity production. So now some figures about these 4 variables, capital, age of capital, education, electricity production, and ICT. So first, concerning the age of capital, we can observe very important change. For example, for the US, in black, you see that the average age of capital equipment has grown quite a lot during the Great Depression, of course, from a lack of investment. After, it decreased a lot during the Second World War from a very impressive acceleration of investment. And after, you get low movements compared to what was observed in the past. And you observe also for other countries, and for example, for the euro area, completely opposed movement with a very high, very impressive increase of the average age of capital during the Second World War. We observe exactly the contrary in the US, of course, from a lack of investment in a lot of countries during the Second World War. And after a very large decrease of the average age of capital during the catch-up, during the golden age of the catch-up process to the US productivity level. So you will see that our estimates give an impact of 3% for 1 year change in the average age on TFP level. So you can, for example, if you take the example of the case of Japan, from the top here to this bottom, there is 5 years difference. 5 years difference by 3, it makes 15% impact on the productivity level. And of course, for this different behavior of the age of capital during the Second World War, for example, we could try to get an explanation of the acceleration of the TFP during the Second World War in the US, and on the contrary, of the deceleration of TFP in European countries. So now for education, you know that the average number of years of studies in the working age population, you observe quite a continuous increase with a sort of asymptote at the end of the period. And this asymptote is observed at something as 13 years of schooling. And our hope, of course, is to capture from this part of an explanation of the TFP slowdown at the end of the period. Of course, it's a part of the explanation, but for how much, that's what we are going to look.
Sorry. The y-axis, is it Elan years or years? Because the title
says
it is Elan years. It's in years, right?
It's in years, yeah. Yeah, it's written even.
Oh, sorry, I read it as Elan.
No. Excuse me, it's a cap, yeah. This is a cap, so it's in years. So now, concerning production of electricity per capita, you observe this long increase, this asymptote at the end of the period, and this big difference between the US and the euro area perhaps will give part of explanation of the different behavior of TFP in the two areas. And concerning now ICT share in capital equipment, in value, from the 50s, thanks Eli, but I've already presented what would have interested you the most. But we observe, this increase of the share of ICT capital everywhere in the world. But we observe also at the end of the period stabilization. So the diffusion of ICTs would have stopped as a production factor, of course, would have stopped, at the end of the 90s, everywhere in the world, which is surprising, but that's what is observed from statistics I've built from original data built by OECD. But what is also surprising is that we observe a big gap in ICT diffusions between, I would say, Anglo-Saxon countries, here, England, UK, and the US, and European ones, here, euro area, in red. And of course, from this, we could get an explanation of the fact that the euro area has benefited less than the US from the third industrial revolution, as you've seen before. The productivity growth wave was smaller or even not observed, quite not observed in the euro area, and was observed in the US. So the story you've missed by the fact that from the advice of Philip, I present this paper. The story you miss is the explanation of how we can understand this process, this stabilization, and everything behind this. I want you to regret the other presentation. So the second step, we estimate the coefficient epsilon and theta by different methods, OLS and instrumental variable. A range of our estimates is for epsilon between 3% and 12%, and for theta between 2% and 11%. And we assume here the most credible value, all the estimates are in the paper, concerning this different estimates, 10% for epsilon, which correspond also, which is consistent with the literature, and 7% for theta. So 10% multiplied by the share of capital in value added, the elasticity of capital, 0.3. It means that, as I was telling before, 1 more year for the average age of capital means a decline of 3% for TFP. And theta equal to 7% multiplied by 1 minus alpha, so multiplied by 0.7, means that 1 more year, in average, 1 more year of schooling, increase in average TFP by 5%. 7% multiplied by 70% makes 5%. So in the third step, we estimate, and the estimate tables are in the paper and even the appendix of this presentation. If you want, we'll go to this, by OLS and the instrumental variable method. So we get an elasticity here, theta equal in the range of 0.75 to 0.1. We choose this value from one estimate, which seems to us the best one, which means that a 1% increase of electricity production per capita increase productivity by 0.08%. And for nu, we have this range for the estimate of the parameter nu, and we choose this one. There is no reference in the literature for this, but this one seems to us the most credible. It means that a 1% increase of the ICT share in capital, in value, we get from this an increase of TFP of 1.56%. So now we go to the results. What can we get as a result? I show only this for the US, but in the paper you get it you get them for all countries. That the TFP behavior, the same as I was presenting before. This is TFP minus the impact, as we have evaluated it, the impact of factor quality, human capital, and change in the age of capital stock. And you see that from this, we explain quite a big share, but not all, the top of the wave observed during the Second World War, of course, from the movement in the age of capital I've commented just before. And now this is what we get when we subtract the impact of, as we have evaluated it, the impact of the representative component of the second industrial revolution, electricity production, and impact of ICT diffusion. And you see that we explain even more, but we get more to explain in terms of volatility at the beginning of the 20th century, when the process of electricity production started at a big scale in the US. And what is a sort of satisfaction, but is that we explain partly, but only partly, the TFP slowdown at the end of the period. You know, what we keep to explain here is by a lot smaller than what we had before. So to give the main message from this evaluation, main message is that, yes, from our approach, we explain partly the volatility of TFP and the slowdown of TFP at the end of the period, but only partly, perhaps between 1/3 and a half, but more 1/3 than half of this TFP growth volatility. So that's what is written here. And among technological shock, electricity has the largest contribution to growth. But, of course, ICT behavior explains a lot of the decrease of TFP growth at the end of the period. And among factor quality indicators, education gets the highest contribution, but the age of capital has a significant one, and mainly during certain particular period, as, for example, before the Second World War, during the Great Depression, and during the Second World War. So, just to finish, why we explain so few? Why we explain so few? Of course, we try to give some explanation of this. When there is a technological shock, we have a direct impact. For example, for ICTs, some industries produce ICT, and in these industries, there is very high TFP gains. So that's what is called here the direct production impact. But as you know, this share here of TFP, the ICT production in the total GDP in the US is very small for hardware, and for example, it's less than 2% of the GDP of the US GDP, and it's even declining as more and more it's produced abroad. Second one is that probably there is mismeasurement of price declines of capital goods, and even if we take the share of ICT in total capital in value, in current value, we have to use partly the price evaluated by national accounting, US national accounting, and even if it is the best evaluation for this in the world, of course, we measure this very, very badly, only partly for hardware, quite not at all for software, and even in hardware, we take into account very partly the decline of price, again in performance of ICTs, in the splitting of the value between price and volume. So perhaps the volatility we get is partly linked to this. And the third channel is, of course, externalities. And externalities, we can think that we get its externalities impact as much as possible from our regression. But you can see that we miss, for a big part, this second channel, this second capital deepening channel to explain TFP growth. And that in reality, the capital deepening process is on some period more rapid than what we represent here. So next steps of our study will be to continue to enlarge our long database and to include first more variables, quality of institutions to explain growth, and it will be, of course, a crucial dimension of our next work to try to explain dimension and volatility in productivity by institutions. So that's what we are doing currently. And we enlarge also this database by including developing countries and not to have only developed countries. When we want to speak about convergence, it's good to have countries which have not converged and not to have only countries which have quite converged. Okay, I stop here.